SnailTrail4x4 podcast. If you like going off-roading in Toyotas, wrenching on Toyotas, camping on Toyotas, and maybe even poking a little bit of fun at Toyotas, and of course, hearing about how fantastic chicken jokes are in Toyotas, then this is the podcast for you. That's right, ladies and germs. We have a full episode of nothing but chicken jokes. Hopefully you guys are buckled in and ready to go. And the person that's going to be telling us all these jokes and starting right now is the one and only Jimmy Jett. Jimmy, how are you?
I am doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing well. I'm a little confused by that answer, though, because that was not a chicken joke.
No?
No.
I'm sorry. Well, what do mama chickens call their excess tummy fat?
Oh, geez. I don't know what.
Their egg roll.
Okay. Okay, we're done with chicken jokes for today.
I'm just getting warmed up. What did the spotty chicken say?
The spotty chicken?
Spotty. Yeah.
I don't know. What?
Help, I have people pox.
Oh. Because a person would say they have chicken pox?
Exactly, yeah.
So a chicken would say they have people pox?
Pretty much. Did you hear about the rooster who wouldn't stop cursing?
Oh, no.
I did, but it was some very foul language.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we keep going?
Yeah, no, we don't need to keep going on chicken jokes, but we can keep going the show. Oh, man. We have a Monday episode here for everybody.
Yes, we do.
So we're going to talk about some fun little topic. Hopefully you guys can learn something through what Jimmy and I do, and hopefully don't do what we do. Hope that's kind of the goal, is to learn the mistakes that we do and the mess ups. And then you can be like, next time you're in that situation, be like, I remember when Tyler and Jimmy did this. Let's not do that.
Pretty much.
So that's the goal for Monday episodes. So before we get in there, though, we have a giveaway going on for the month of February. And that is going to be some Gear Wrench stuff for one lucky winner. We got some stuff from Gear Wrench sitting in Jimmy's rack. And we will put together a fun little prize package, or maybe like a choose your prize package. That'd be what we did last time. It turned out really good. The winner enjoyed that, got to choose from a bunch of items. So we'll do that again probably before the month of February. Huge shout out and thank you to Gear Wrench for continuously sponsoring, playing with the podcast, doing some cool stuff for listeners, however you want to call it. We like to think of it as doing cool stuff for the listeners. So yeah, they're here to support the podcast, support you guys out there. So next time you guys are looking for tools, or you're like, man, I really wish I had like, I don't know, a 3-inch long, 1/2-inch drive extension, that you'll think of Gear Wrench and go pick one up. Isn't that right, Jimmy?
That is correct. I do absolutely need a 3 to 4 inch extension and 1/2-inch drive. Yep.
That's funny. So yeah, if you guys are in the market for tools, looking to add something to your tool setup, your garage, your shop, your trail tools, whatever it is, think of Gear Wrench, because they do cool stuff for you guys on the show. So, and they have some fantastic products.
They do indeed. Yep.
Let's see. We've got a giveaway going on through our reviews on Apple Podcasts, as always. So we're coming up on 700 reviews here on Apple Podcasts. So once we reach that 700 mark, we'll be doing an Onyx Off-Road Elite membership for a 1-year membership. And that will get you the Elite setup with Onyx Off-Road, which is all the bells and whistles, for 1 year. So if you already have an Onyx membership, it'll just tack on to whenever your annual subscription is done with, or if you're on month to month, it'll tack on whenever your subscription is done, it'll tack on a year to that. So pretty cool stuff from Onyx. Thank you to them for doing some cool stuff for the listeners. And we'll pull that drawing from all of these 700 reviews once we reach 700 reviews. And then once we reach 750, what are we doing there, Jimmy?
We're giving away a set of tires.
Yum.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got a set of tires for a lucky winner from Yokohama. Pretty much any tire that they make, you can get. It just has to be DOT approved and less than a 20-inch rim. But once we get to 750, we're going to draw one review out of that list, and a lucky winner is going to win a set of tires from Yokohama.
Cool. I like it. So another company that's doing some cool stuff. They make some really good tires. They're huge in the sedan world, not as big of a market share in the off-roading world, but they make some awesome tires for the off-road world. They did, I think, sponsor one of the races this year. It's the Yokohama tire races at Ultra 4. So that was pretty cool of them stepping up. And they're really trying to get into more of the off-roading scene. So they make a great product. It's fun to see them getting more involved in the off-road industry. Hopefully, our little show here can help spread the Yokohama love. I love their tires. Jimmy loves their tires. We have them on our off-road rigs, our personal rigs. And I've started, I buy their tires too. That's what I spend my money on for the other vehicles. So
Yokohama is the title sponsor for the EMC race.
Nice.
The Everyman Challenge.
So on Friday, all the cars there are going to be in the EMC race. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a really, really good stepping up there. So good job, Yokohama.
Yep. Really fun to see them venturing more into the off-road world. So hopefully, I hope they do their Rubicon run again this year with Dave.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get in on that again. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that worked because I know that Dave started working with Yokohama and was able to get tires. And I think he offered a run to Yokohama because he got some tires.
That makes sense.
So I don't know if Yokohama wants to come back out or if Dave's offering to take him out again. I'm not sure.
I'll have to talk with Dave and just put that in his ear and be like, you should offer another trip and keep that sponsorship good, man.
Yeah, because I want to go say hi to those guys.
I want to go hang out with them. They're fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know Dave's listening. Dave, if you're listening, there you go. There's that whisper in your ear.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got the Yokohama tire giveaway. That'll be whenever we reach 750 reviews. So the sooner we reach 750 reviews, the sooner we get to give away a full set of Yokohama tires. So everybody tell your buddies. If you know that your buddies have an iTunes account, steal their phone and go leave a review for them. And then just remember which account you left that review on so that you can steal their phone again when we ask you to prove you have access to the account when you win the tires. So we'll do that once we reach 750 reviews. What else do we got going on?
I don't think there's a whole lot. We do have the giveaway for the torque straps that we'll do on Thursday. Sorry, we're a little scatterbrained since Tyler's been sick and we weren't meeting and I wasn't thinking about it. So we're a week behind where we should be, but we'll get that winner announced and FNGs and everything on Thursday's episode.
Cool. Sounds good. When are you getting that 4-wheel underground suspension put under, Samantha?
Yesterday.
Real question here. Yesterday?
Yeah. No, thank you. All done. Samantha's ready to roll. No, I wish, man. Yeah. Soon. I mean, I've been saying that in a lot of intros and stuff here lately, but it's I want to start working on it. I need to start working on it. I organized a little bit of the shop the other day to get the Tacoma in when I started working on that. I got some big things laying in the shop that I'm kind of having to work around, like the lift and some big axles. And so I'm trying to figure out a good workflow there, but I need to start. That's the thing. I need to start. I need to get up on, off my high horse or whatever, stop doing whatever I'm doing. And I need to spend some time in that shop.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. I really want to see how the trailing arms work out because I almost went that route, but my gas tank is in the way, right? You're doing something fun with Samantha's gas tank where the gas tank won't be in your way for a 4-link. So you get to do the trailing arms while I get to do the peasant 3-link in the rear. But...
Yeah. Sorry about that. Not really, but I'm excited. I love the way
the 3-link works. Don't get me wrong. I'm just curious because I don't know. I've always been curious as to how trailing arms work in rock crawling. They're great for desert stuff, high-speed desert stuff, because you can use a smaller shock to get more travel on a trailing arm. But I've always been curious if how those trailing arms kind of get in the way or not in rock crawling. John Arns on his Jeep has trailing arms.
Yep.
And it seems to do fantastic out there. So I don't think you're going to have too much issues, but I still want to watch the suspension work. So
yeah, you and me both. Somebody's going to have to drive that rig, and I'm going to just pretty much be like googly and eyeing it to see how it goes. Yeah, we'll do
I volunteer as tribute.
Tyler's hands up. Yeah, I'll drive, you watch, and then you drive, and I'll watch, and we'll We'll go back and forth over something. Yeah.
I almost made a cuck joke there. Anyways.
Well, it's been the chicken hour, hasn't it?
Jesus, we're going to be cucking Samantha on the trail. Is that what that's turning into?
Pretty much.
Anyways, let's see. So topics for today we're going to get into was actually a listener supplied topic. They called in last week, I think it was, on voicemail, and we were like, we could go deep into this one. This could be a whole long show with different options, different ways to talk about it. So I think that's what we're going to be doing today. So thank you to the listener that called in. If we could find a way to hook up my phone to Riverside and play the voicemail, we'd play that first, but we'll just have to take a quick break here and we'll be back and let you guys know what the topic is and what we're going to be talking about. Yeah?
Let's do it.
Cool. All right, we'll be right on back. Grab your favorite drinks, grab some popcorn, and we'll be right on back with today's campfire discussion.
If you have a third-gen 4Runner and want 16 inches of wheel travel without cutting into your sheet metal, check out 4-Wheel Underground's brand new cantilever suspension, featuring an integrated anti-sway bar and turn-by-dial disconnect. Don't sacrifice performance and comfort for the sake of wheel travel. Get both with our new cantilever system at 4wheelunderground.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentle ladies, to today's campfire discussion on here on Snail Trail 4x4 podcast. Monday's episodes kind of get dedicated, like we talked about earlier, to things that Jimmy and I do or don't do that you guys get to learn something from, hopefully. That's kind of the goal of Monday, is we get to talk about something that you might find yourself discussing around a campfire with your buddies. And a lot of times campfire discussions bring about some really good ideas that maybe you didn't think about before, that somebody else does, and you're like, that's a phenomenon. I never thought of that. I want to start doing that, or take that idea and run with it, or do something that evolves off of it, right? So that's kind of the goals of Mondays, is to come up with a topic that can spark some conversation, some idea amongst the listeners. So this one actually was an idea that a listener sent in that sparked some conversation ideas amongst Jimmy and I that we thought would be fun to talk about on the podcast here. So I believe it was, what's that movie? Wreck-It Ralph?
Wreck-It Ralph.
Ralph called in again.
Ralph, but it's Wreck-It Rob.
It's Rob. Rob called in again to talk about kind of like shop organization stuff.
Yeah.
And what was his main question, Jimmy?
It was mainly shop organization, because he had just cleaned out his garage. He said he had a 2-car garage that he was kind of using it as a shop space. Mm-hmm. And he kind of wanted ideas on how to organize that space to be best outfitted to be able to work on vehicles. He did state that I think it's not tall enough to bring his big old rock race Bronco, K5, whatever that thing is, into the shop, that it was primarily going to be working on like smaller trucks or cars. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it really matters. I think any kind of shop or garage organizations are going to work about the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to work about the same too. I think there's different ways to do it depending on what type of work you're really doing. I have found that, like, for me personally, there's a difference between doing vehicle work and doing fabrication.
Yes.
And I have noticed, if I'm doing fabrication, I really want and need the vehicle out of the garage, or I need to do the fabrication out of the garage. Whereas if I'm working on a vehicle, then I end up having to put those in two different places.
Okay. And why is that?
I think it's because I just don't have enough room in the 2-car garage to do both. I think a lot of times with fabrication, you're dealing with long sticks of DOM, or long sticks of angle iron, or sheets of plate that you're having to move around, right? And so I just feel like you need more space to do that. I find myself needing more space to do that. So I need the vehicle to not be in there when I'm doing more fabrication stuff. So I don't know. I feel like there's a difference. If you have a 2-car garage, I wonder what the square footage is on a 2-car garage versus, like, say, your shop.
Oh man. Well, my shop can I can fit like 6 cars in there.
Exactly, right? So, and there's enough space in your shop to do kind of fabrication stuff and vehicle work. And so I'm kind of wondering in my head if there's that line, that threshold of where you can do both in one space, or if there's different ways to get creative for working on a vehicle versus fabrication.
Yeah. I just, our Brian Murphy got in contact with me, and he said that he's on it, man. He's got it. He said a typical 2-car garage is roughly 20 by 20. So it's about 400 square feet.
Wow. And then your shop is 1,100?
Yeah, 11, 12.
1,200 square feet, something like that. Yeah. So that explains it then. That explains why.
Yeah. Mine's
I feel
3-4 times bigger.
Yeah, when I'm trying to do fabrication and vehicle work. So yeah, typically nowadays, I do all the fabrication stuff in the garage, and I'll do all the vehicle work out on the street, mainly because my driveway is so sloped that I don't feel safe doing vehicle stuff on the driveway. But the other thing is that if I, spill a little bit of oil on the floor, the blacktop on the street kind of works great for soaking up oil. That's kind of a major ingredient in blacktops on street is oil products. So I'm not too concerned about it.
And you don't notice it.
Yeah, you don't notice it as much.
It's black on black. Really well. Yeah.
So I don't know. I find myself doing those 2 jobs in those 2 different places. So my 2-car garage is really set up more for fabrication work and creation of stuff rather than maintenance and working on a vehicle stuff. So it sounds though that like Wreck-It Rob, he's talking about trying to set up his garage so that he can work on his vehicles in his garage. And so if he has a typical 2-car garage, I know that Wreck-It Rob can do fabrication work. So I don't know if he's trying to find a way to do fabrication and vehicle work in the same space, but I've found that I can't do it. So maybe that's something for people to call in that have a roughly 400 square foot workspace, how they do it. But I haven't really been able to find out a way to do it. I do know that Hussman has come up with some very creative ways to do vehicle work and fabrication. And he has a single 1-car garage.
Yeah, it's like a 1.5-car garage. It's super small.
It's tiny, but he also does a lot of his work out in his driveway.
He does.
He does have a nice bigger driveway to do stuff in. So
I would almost say he does kind of the opposite. He does a lot of the fabrication outside of the garage, and then his buggy stays inside the garage most of the time.
Yep.
But occasionally he will push the buggy out or pull it out one of the ways and then do a little bit of work inside. But I think it depends on the project and what the scope is and how decent size the material is that he's working on. And that's whether he's going to be working in the garage or outside the garage.
So let's talk about kind of those 3 different scenarios. I think, I don't know, Hussman, we're going to talk a little bit about your setup, just FYI, I guess, because it's really clever. He has a lot of really clever things that he's done in order to make that space viable for the stuff that he does.
He does so much out of such a tiny space.
A lot,
which, it's less than a 2-car garage, and he's built an entire buggy inside of it. And he has a lot of tips and tricks kind of how he organizes his space and to be able to build a vehicle, which is impressive. Yep. And then, we'll talk about what Tyler's kind of got going and, with the 2-car garage and how he's set it up, arranged his garage to best fit his needs. And then I think I bring more of a kind of shop layout organization to this table, and I can talk about kind of how I lay out the shop and how things work.
Yep. Yeah. So let's start with kind of the small space. What are some tips and tricks that we've seen Hussman do for small space off-road vehicle work and fabricating, stuff like that? I think the biggest thing is that everything he has converted it to be mobile.
Yeah. And you kind of need to in that aspect. And before we jump too far into this, I also want to state that absolutely, or pretty much everything that we're going to talk about in the small space applies across the board.
I think so too. I think
right.
you and I
And
have
so
both
whatever
done-
you're doing in the small space, you can do in the medium space and you can do in the large space. And it probably is a good thing to put those into effect in all the spaces that you're in. Sometimes the bigger space, what you can't do is do that. What you're doing in the larger space, you can't do in the smaller space, but you can go the other direction. So So Hussman has everything kind of mobile because he has to put stuff away at night is the gist of it. And so you can't just leave things out for the next day because he's probably working outside or the buggy's outside and needs to put it away. So absolutely everything is kind of free flowing, mobile, kind of just easy to work with and around because at the end of the day, you have to put it away. So he does have a lot of things on carts or a lot of tools or apparatuses that he can just take off of a shelf and put outside so that he can do his work and do the work that he needs. And then he has this really cool tripod. I forgot who makes it because I ended up buying a similar one because the one he has works. He just has had it for so long, but it's a tripod. It's a plumbing tripod. Actually, it has a few different fittings or holes in it to do bends. And it's got a kind of a pipe vise on one end of it. And then he's built accessories to work with that tripod that will help him do fabrication. So he's got a few things that he can lash down to the tripod to help him hold pieces of metal or balance them out or hold them at funky angles. And it really enhanced his fabrication availability or process because of these jigs in a way to be able to do the fabrication process.
Yeah, definitely. I think that having one thing that can do multiple jobs, right? That's really what you got to be focused on when you have limited space, being very efficient with the different tasks and jobs you need to do. Whereas like on the other end of the spectrum, you have all this different space. You can have a pipe bender plus a vise, multiple vices, plus a pipe vise, plus axle stands, all these different things that you just can't do in a small space. And so you have to have one object, one item that you can adapt or modify and get creative with to do multiple jobs. And I think that's a lot of kind of what Hussman has done is he's a genius fabricator. He knows how to look at stuff and then be like, oh yeah, we can modify it or move or tweak this around in order to make it do this that we want it to do, right? And I think he's done a really good job, especially with that tripod. It's a great example of that.
And a good example of kind of what you're alluding to is a drill press. Like a drill press is a fantastic tool, but it's not versatile enough to use in a very small space. And it takes up a lot of space, whether it's a benchtop version or a floor stand version. They take up a lot of space and they don't get used that often. Let's be honest. They're nice to have, but they're not a necessity to have. And they take up so much space anywhere that they are that you either are going to, if you have the desk or the bench top version, you're either going to be taking it on and off of your bench and putting it away somewhere. And so you're going to be having a storage location for it. Plus you're going to have to pull it out and put it on the bench to use it. Or a floor stand version that's just going to be taking floor space away. It's really an item that's not like, I don't advise you to have in a small, 1.5, 2 car garage because it takes up a lot of space and you don't use it that often is the main things. And so that's sort of, I've always called them unitaskers.
Unitask, that's a good way.
I forgot who I got that from. It was some cook. It was a cook on one of those cooking channels. Is
that's funny.
You don't want a unitasker, right? You don't want this one item that only does one thing. You want stuff that can do multiple things. You can do multiple different tasks with that because then you're not wasting space to have that multitasker item in your shop, like a hand drill. There's all kinds of things you could do with a hand drill. You could probably even figure out a way to make a hand drill into something like a drill press. And so that's sort of the way you have to think. It's do I need this? Or is there another way to accomplish this and have like a multitasking function into it?
Yeah, 100% agreed. I love my drill press. I actually use it a lot. I do use my drill press a lot, but it is 100% a luxury item. You can get 90% of jobs you're going to be doing on a vehicle done without a drill press, just a good drill and some keeping your bits sharp.
Yep.
Right? It does take up a lot of space. There are times when I'm like, man, I'd rather have a shelf there to hold all of my jigs for my press. But I find myself using the drill press more than the press. So I'm like, just keep it here. But it is kind of in an awkward spot and it's tucked off to the side. And I've never had a great spot for it. Even then, that's in my 2-car garage, right? So yeah, I think another example of
well, before you go there, I wanted to just state that you probably have a friend that has a drill press.
True.
So, it's like you can get 90% of the jobs done with a hand drill or something similar. And then occasionally you need to go to your buddy's house to use a drill press so that you get something perfectly, 90 degrees or straight down or however you need the accuracy of a drill press. Yeah. You're going to have it. But most of the time you can just use a hand drill.
Yep.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, another item that kind of came to mind as we were talking about drill press is a pipe cutter, metal cutter. So like a chop saw for metal or a band saw kind of thing. Band saws and chop saws are awesome. They're fantastic. But it's kind of like that luxury item, right? They kind of take up a lot more space. I have a mobile band saw, portable band saw, portaband, that I've thought would be great, would be fantastic, and I would use it all the time, right? And I could get the Swag Off-Road portaband holder that turns it into a chop saw, band saw, and I don't have any place to put it. Like I wanted to get the one that mounts on a wall, and I still don't have a good spot to use it on a wall in my 2-car garage. I've got, a corner of the garage is filled with camping gear, and I've got another shelf right next to it with more camping gear and the chainsaw stuff and chairs and lights and stuff. And I have another shelf dedicated to over the gun safe that's dedicated to kind of spare vehicle parts that I may or may not use in the future. Another shelf dedicated to maintenance parts and spare metal. I've got another shelf and workbench dedicated to fluids for your oil, your cleaners, your spray paints, all that stuff. And then I have a big electrical workbench that I have electrical stuff. Then I have my metal workbench and all my tools. So it's like I can't find a good spot to put the portaband to be used as a band saw. And so I end up using a grinder with a cutoff wheel on it all the time for cutting metal instead of the portaband that I was really looking forward to using. So
yeah. And once again, it's a luxury item. You can use a grinder with a cutoff wheel on almost everything. And then there's some times that you really just need a fine accuracy and like that straight cut that maybe you just take it to a shop, or maybe you have a buddy that has one and then you can take it over there. And I think that that's another great example of something that is good to have. Maybe you already have it. Right. And it just sits in the box on a shelf and you can pull it out whenever you need or you want to use it or need to use it. And then you just kind of put it back away. But I think eventually you'll find that there's going to be things that you just never really use. And I forgot when we talked about it, but we did talk once about sort of like where you position things in the house and how you organize your house, like briefly. And I don't know. I forgot what we were referencing, but let's just take sort of like a bathroom countertop as an example. Okay. Right. And something that you use every day should probably sit out on the counter. Right. Like I brush my teeth. My toothbrush is out on the counter. Right. Yep. My toothpaste is out on the counter most of the time. My deodorant is out on the counter. Right. Those things I use every single day. Toothbrush and toothpaste multiple times a day, deodorant sometimes multiple times a day, right? They're out on the counter. But like my beard trimmer or my hair trimmer, it's I use it maybe once a week, once every other week, and I don't need that out on my counter. That can be put away in a drawer.
Mm-hmm.
The cleaning supplies that I don't, for like cleaning the bathroom, I don't use that every single day. Those aren't out on the counter. Those are underneath the sink. So there's levels of within your shop that you can do the same thing. What are you going to be using often? Probably that grinder. That grinder needs to be easily accessible, something that you can grab, right? The chop saw or the portaband, something that you use maybe once a month or maybe once a year. Put it on a shelf, store it away until that one time that you're going to need to grab it, that you're going to have to go and use a ladder and go up to a shelf and take it off the shelf.
Yeah.
Right. The less likely that you're using stuff, put it further and further away into storage. The more likely you use things, the more often that you use things, leave it out on the counter in an essence. And I think that's a good way for you to understand how often you are going to be doing stuff in your shop, what you're doing in your shop, because maybe you think you're going to use the portaband a lot and you have it out on the counter and you don't really use it. Then do a mental check like once a month. What things have I touched? Maybe actually everything you touch, leave it out on the counter and then go, all this stuff I touched, none of this stuff down below I've touched. Let's start storing stuff away. Let's put stuff away. Let's sell stuff. Let's get rid of stuff, give stuff to friends. You're going to have to clean out that garage, that space, so that you can make a better workflow for yourself. Mm-hmm. Then maybe one day you're going to need it. And then, hey, ask for it back from your buddy, or, maybe you have to buy one once a year or rent one from once a year or something, that it's not that big of a deal to get it for a temporary use. Anything else you want to touch on that? Because I have sort of another direction to go.
No, nothing else on that. I think that one of the biggest things that I did that I was like, God, this saves so much time and headache, is to get 2 grinders.
Yes.
Have one with a cutoff disc and one with your flapper discs, right?
Yeah.
Your grinders on, and make sure that you get the ones with like a 10 to 12 foot cord on them, rather than the ones with a 4-foot cord on them. So that was one thing I did for my space for tool access. I've just found I'm using grinders all the time because there's so much you can do with grinders and a cutoff wheel or a flap disc. So that, I think, also having like an extension cord that specifically can reach the full space, the full workspace of whatever you're in.
Yep.
That way you can pull a power tool over to the other side of your shop, your workspace, whatever it is. I have that extension cord too, and I use that. It's plugged into the wall all the time, and I move it around between the drill press, the grinders if I need them out in the driveway, something in the back of the shop, whatever it is, the back of the garage. That one extension cord gets moved all around and gets used all the time to get just more reach on wherever I might need a power tool.
Yeah, I have a extension cord right by the main roll-up door of the shop that is rolled up onto my drill press. Mm-hmm. And if I'm ever working outside, that's bam, I grab it and go outside and use it. And then if I use my drill press, then I have to unplug the extension cord. Yeah. Because the fridge is plugged into the other outlet. But it's not very often I'm using that drill press. So it's like the extension cord's primarily plugged in all the time.
Yeah.
Now, 2 grinders is a great tip. I have always thought that having a cordless grinder and a corded grinder would be a good combo too, because then you're not restricted by a cable on one of them, but you just need to make sure you have enough batteries to cover it. And I always wanted a corded grinder around, because maybe the batteries run out and you don't have any batteries and you're stuck for a while. Plus, I still feel, though battery technology is getting really good, I still feel that corded grinders are stronger, and you can seriously put more elbow grease into a corded grinder and it doesn't bog down.
I agree. I think the motors are stronger.
Yeah.
And they can just be fed with more power because they have a bigger power source.
Right.
That corded grinders, especially in a shop setting, are kind of the way to go. I still use the battery powered grinder to kind of finish things off. If I need to soften up an edge or something like that, I'll have that around, and I'll take it out on the trail. Yeah. And it works decently on the trail, but it still definitely doesn't have the oomph and and gusto that the corded wall ones have. So.
Right. So another thing that you can do in a smaller space, and Jason does a fantastic job of this, is shelving units pretty much as high up as you can go in your garage, right? And just it comes down to available storage in that case. Jason's garage, Hustle Nuts garage, it's pretty tall. It's probably 9-ish feet up there, maybe taller than that. Mm-hmm. And so he has in his garage, he has a few spots where he has hanging shelves from the ceiling. And then he has like, what do you want? Metal shelving that goes nearly to the ceiling, probably a little less because he uses the top shelf as a shelf. Mm-hmm. And so make a dedicated area of quote unquote storage for items that you can put away or you know where they go. And one of the things that he does very well is he has a bunch of tubs. And so he has a tub for like cleaning supplies, carb cleaners, simple green, whatever it is, there's a tub for that. He has like a tub for spray paint. He has all these variable tubs for different processes of the fabrication. And so that you can just go and grab a tub and open the tub and see what's inside of it. And then you can get the item you need outside of that tub. What I necessarily don't like about the tub thing, because though I do think it's a good way to stay organized and a good way to kind of get an idea of, or to fill your space in, is that when you're low on a product, you can't see it. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get a clear tub, that's a bonus. Also, if you don't fill the tub up, it becomes a wasted space.
True.
So if you only fill up half the tub, there's a half a tub empty, but the tub takes up the whole shelf. Yeah. So there's half a shelf there in this scenario that isn't being used. Yeah. So tubs might not be the best solution. It works fantastic for him, but you just kind of need to pick and choose or play with it. Maybe you put some things in tubs and some things don't go in tubs. But the point is organization and storage. You have to have a place for storage. You need a place to store things away and have places for things. And that goes along with the organization of your shop, and just having like a tub for cleaners. You know exactly where all those cleaning supplies are. You know exactly where to go every single time to grab those cleaning supplies.
Yeah, I like that as well. I don't use and utilize tubs very much. I'll use tubs for storing like the miscellaneous vehicle parts stuff. Mm-hmm. But even then, I don't like it because I don't have clear tubs, right? And so it ends up being, oh yeah, this is great. I'll put this in the random accessories tub or the random recovery gear tub, or I have a tub that holds my spare tail lights and headlights and stuff like that. But then I forget that they're all there because they're in tubs that I can't see through. And then I'll be like, man, I need this item, and I'll completely forget that I have it already because it's in a tub I can't see through. So
right. But then there's some things like I have a small tub, like a little bigger than a shoebox, for random hoses, like rubber hose vacuum lines, and it's like having all that sort of shoved together in one spot is so nice, because you're like, I need a 1/8 hose. Well, all my hoses are in this tub. So pull out that tub. Let's see if I have something. Even old spare stuff, or things that I've ripped off that are still good, I just throw in there because maybe you need a few inches and you can cut one apart and just make it. I also have a small similar size tub for random electrical wires, all different sizes, and it just sits on I said it before, like I have an entire cart dedicated to electrical. Yep. And so it's just one of the things that I'm working on electrical, pull this card out. It's got my solder iron on it. It's got strippers. It's got all these electrical connections, and a random assortment of wires. And I just have this tub on the bottom of that cart. It's like, if I pull a long random thing of wire off of something, I might need it at that wire at some point in time. So I throw it in this small tub underneath the electrical cart, and who knows, maybe I use it at one point, or maybe I don't. Also, on the flip side, that also might be a shop thing, because I have enough space to store a bunch of random crap like that I have the room to be able to do that. So it's a benefit of your space. So maybe if you're not like, don't be a hoarder. If you have a small amount of space, you can't keep everything. But if you know that this is a common thing that you have on a vehicle, then maybe store it away somewhere fairly easily.
Yeah, I also have a box that I keep electrical components, extra wire in, and it has grown to 2 sizable boxes now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really need to kind of go through this and pull and make one box into spare wire and one box into electrical components now at this point. So
yeah, I have a box here in the house that is audio connections, more or less, or different wired connections like Ethernet cables, audio connections, HDMI cables, DVI cables, all this random stuff. And I've had this random box going since like high school.
Yep.
And I need to go back into that. Like it's like 4 shoe boxes. It's a big, decent sized box. And there's just outdated stuff that you don't use anymore that, you know, like I don't need a bunch of VGA cables these days. There's no VGA connections for the most part. And if you go to a VGA connection, then you're probably trying to hook up something old school.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, I don't need half a box full of VGA cables. You know, I could probably get rid of that and shrink this box down. So maybe there is something about going through your storage and trying to weed some of the stuff out also to clean up your space.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's also needed. You talked a little bit about it earlier, but to go through and like once a year, you just kind of go through all your parts and be like, is this really old? Did I use this in the past 2 years, maybe 3 years? And if you're tight on space and you're concerned about space efficiency, then yeah, maybe you get rid of it. I know I try and do that. And my kind of rule is, have I used this in 2 years? If I haven't used it in 2 years, my space is more valuable than the part, for the most part, than keeping the part and not buying it later down the road.
Yeah.
So there's other people that are like, no, heck no, my space is not as valuable. And, you know, that part, I don't want to have to buy it again down the road. I have the space, so I'd rather keep the part and use the space.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that along with the bathroom, going back to the bathroom model, you know, you go from the counter, you go to a drawer, you go to maybe underneath the sink, then it moves to a closet, and then it moves to the garage. And if you're still not using it in the garage, then you get rid of it, right? And so there's multiple stages of like, maybe you can do the same thing in your shop somehow. Like maybe you have it on a shelf or on the counter, and then it goes into a drawer, and then it goes onto the shelf. And then if you don't use it by then you get rid of it. So yeah, you just need to figure out a good workflow for yourself. Yeah.
One thing that I want to do for my space, which is the, 2-car garage, different space for fabrication versus vehicle work, is since I do my fabrication in the garage and vehicle work outside the garage, I would like to find a better way to make my tools portable. Because right now, all my tools are in my 2 tool chests, which are my fabrication counter, right? So I kind of want to get a tool cart, like what your electrical cart is, a mobile tool cart that I can put a rail of sockets on, some extensions, some ratchets, the impact drivers, put that stuff on, and then wheel it out to the car. That way I don't just have all the tools in a pile on the ground spread out around underneath the car all the time. And I think I want to get a little fold-up table that I can take out there as well. That way, for like when I'm doing electrical work, I can have the table to put all the wiring that I'm working on crimping and setting up, whatever wire harness I'm working on, to then put into the vehicle. I can do all that kind of on the table rather than having to try and work on wiring and heat shrink and soldering inside of a cab of a vehicle while I'm going. So
yeah. Well, I think you also hit the nail. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there too by saying a foldable table, because at the end of the day, you're going to fold that up and you're going to put it away so that you could have room in the garage for whatever you're going to do next.
Yeah.
I think the rolly carts are really nice. And we haven't really talked about it. We did talk about it on the snail mail episode, but having items on wheels is essential in almost any shop. We talked early about having things portable and moving things in and out of the garage, but having a lot of things on wheels, because it just makes it organizing and moving around and adjusting your shop super easy. I have my drill press on wheels. I want to build a wheelie cart for my pipe bender. I have all the, like, my electrical cart is on wheels. I have a few all my toolboxes are on wheels, but they don't move around. But I have a few tool carts that are on wheels. I made a welding table that's on wheels so I could wheel that in and out of the shop. It's just nice to have things on wheels and be able to make your shop more modular in a way so that you can work in one area and you're like, you know what, I really need these tools, or I need my electrical cart over here. And then you can move it to where you are and you can continue to do your work. And they make, like you were alluding to, they make tons of wheeled toolboxes or wheeled tool carts out there. It's just, you need to find the right one that works for you, something that you want to bring in and out. You know, I've been a fan of, I like the gear wrench one, but it doesn't have any storage necessarily on it. It's just like a tool tray on wheels. Yeah. And that is fantastic if you don't need storage, right? It's just this, like, I'm going to be working in the engine.
It's like a workspace rather than a storage thing.
Yeah, it's a small mobile table, right? It's just this little thing. And that works great, but it's not like, you're not going to store everything on that to go outside and work.
And one of those is really like what I want. What I need is I'm not looking for storage, because I pull the tools out of my storage chest and need something as a temporary workspace to roll down to the vehicle to work on, rather than walking back and forth to the garage every single time I need another socket or another tool. It just gets old quick. So yeah, the tool table, tool tray, whatever they call it, is a awesome option for that. But they also make tool carts that are designed for storage that can roll around. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you're in a small space, like you, Rob Hussman, I think having a storage cart is a good option, because because the cart takes up a lot of space. Like this rolling table thing, it takes up a ton of space. There's a void from the wheels to the tabletop that unless you have a perfect spot to slide this in, that you're filling that space with something for when you aren't using that cart, then the cart is sort of a wasted space. For me, it's a fantastic, because I can just kind of have it out and rolls it around, move it wherever I want, throw the tools on, take the tools off, just move it to the next thing. I've got the space to store this cart in the middle of the shop. It's not a problem. But if you're in a small space, I think you should have a rolly cart that has like one or two drawers with some random storage space, open storage space down below, because it's more storage space. You're getting more drawers, more places to put things. Maybe you have two or three of these. Like I kind of have it set up. Like I have one of those. That is my electrical cart. It has one drawer, big space kind of underneath it, and then an open top. I think I even got it from you. Do you want it back? It sounds like you need it.
I might. I was wondering what I did with that cart. I didn't remember where it went to, but that came through my mind. I think when I was working on the whip lights and the siren bracket, I was like, oh no, it was when I was doing the body mounts. I was like, God, I hate walking up and down my driveway to go freaking get another socket or tool. I wish I had that cart back.
Yeah.
But that cart was amazing when I was at the condo before I got into this house, because, half of the garage was taken up by the wife's car. And so really I only had a 1-car garage space to work with. So having the storage and mobile cart into one thing worked very well in that situation. And then I kind of kicked the wife out and made her park in the driveway here at the house.
Yeah.
Now I have a little bit more space. I have a permanent storage for the tools, and having just a mobile workspace, I guess, would be fantastic. So I might steal that cart back from you if you're not using it.
Well, it's my electrical cart, but yeah, but I mean, it is technically it's yours. I can get it back to you.
No, it's fine. I'd rather go and get one of those, the gear wrench tray carts. I'll just go get one of those, because having the mobile workspace is really, I think, what I'm looking for more than the mobile storage space. So.
Yeah, and Gear Wrench doesn't make a storage cart like that. I don't know why. I think that there's so many other people kind of in the game that they kind of were just like, no, It's not something we have. So they either make that table or they make like a small toolbox on wheels.
Gotcha.
Which is interesting because I think that there's a very good market and a very, I don't know, I want to say niche opportunity to have, or that you need this storage mobile cart because it's a nice thing to have extra storage. Because maybe that you have your sockets, your 3/8 sockets, the 3/8 wrenches, some box end wrenches. You have like all these normal tools that you use on like 80 something % of your jobs, right? The 80-20 rules go with.
Yeah.
That you use all these standard things on most of the tool or jobs that you work on. Those are in this rolly cart.
Yeah.
And then all the rest of the tools are in your toolbox, like on the wall. But so you have majority of your tools, you can just roll this cart up to the whatever you're working on, and you have the majority of the tools right there. And then you're like, oh, I need, a 54 millimeter and 1/2-inch drive to take apart this axle. You run back to the toolbox and you get that specific tool that you need. But having it right there on this cart is always a really nice thing to do. And like I said earlier, I do think that if you are in a small space, that having the extra storage of those carts are really nice and a benefit. I
would agree. I think so. Again, it comes down to don't have a unitasker again, right?
100%.
So
yeah. Another tip I have is trying to make all your shelving or counters the same height.
Oh. Okay.
So because if you have a bunch of things on, like if you have a rolling table and a counter and maybe one of your carts, you can kind of push them all together and make a really big table or really big surface. Or if you have like really long pieces of DOM or some angle iron or just tubing or whatever, you can spread it apart and you can balance it if everything's at the same height. And you don't have to worry about pulling a jack out or getting the Sumner jacks, these really tallish jacks that can hold the end of it, or building something out of wood. If you have like tables and everything that's mobile and they're all kind of the same exact height, it makes working around your shop easy because everything's built and works the same height and works together at the same height.
Yeah.
I do have one section of my shelving that's a little lower, but it would be for like a chop saw or something that you can just then slide the metal across the counter and it goes right into the chop saw location.
Yeah, that's a really smart one. I think that one comes into play more when you're bigger spaces. Like in my smaller space, definitely if I'm working on like sticks of DOM or long sticks of angle iron or something, I have to use my drill press, and I'll use the height adjustment on the drill press plate.
Okay.
That holds your vise, right? I'll use that to end up raising it up to the same level as my fabrication workbench in order to hold the sticks of DOM or something. So, or the Sumner jacks, but that's just limited space, not being able to really, I guess, have the area to move around my main fabrication workbench.
I think we should do a shout out on those Sumner jacks though. Those things are very versatile. You can, there's a few different sizes of them, but I think we have like the largest ones, or maybe I'm not even sure if they might be have larger ones than what we have, but they're an infinite adjusting jack adjustment. So you can easily slide the jack up by its quick mechanism. And then it has a fine tuning, like what's it, Acme thread
kind of style,
twist action. So you can just ever so slightly adjust the height of it. And then it goes, I can't remember what, like the ones that we have, they go from like 2.5 feet to 3-4 feet, something crazy.
There's a pretty big adjustment size in them.
Yeah. And they're great for all kinds of things. It's amazing how you don't realize that you can use it for you don't realize how many things you can use it for until you have it.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, I'll just use it for this. I'll use it for that. I'll use it for this. I have it as one of them holds the ends of my panels when I slide my panels into my laser, because the panel, I only have it set up so that when I etched my logo on the panel, that it only needs to slide into my laser that far. That's how much I built the jig for, because it'd be faster if I don't have to stick the panel in all the way. And so then I have, 50 something inches of panel hanging out of the panel just dangling there. So I used one of those summoner jacks, and then I put some padding on the top, and I just set the panel on the other end. And then sometimes, the panels aren't, I don't want to say they're always warped, but sometimes they're not always straight, or something is like a little askew, and you can raise and lower it to adjust it as needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used the summoner jacks for when I did the body mounts. And what I did was I put the 2x4 on the top of the jack, and then put that up under the body, right? And then picked the jack up as far as I could. And then I dropped all the air out of my tires so that the tire, suspension, and frame and everything fell out. And ideally, if I did it right, then everything would come apart and the jacks would be holding the body up.
Nice.
But there was a couple times there I had to lift the body up further just to get the bolts out of the body mount locations. Yeah. And I was able to put a pipe on the handles of the Acme thread infinite adjustment part and lift the body of the vehicle up using the summoner jack, which was really nice and handy to do because I only needed to go half an inch more, whatever it was, an inch, and was able to do it thanks to the infinite adjustability of the summoners. So
yeah. No, they're cool jacks. I'll throw a link down there in the description for you guys. Check them out. They're not cheap, but they are very nice to have, especially if you're working on tall vehicles like us 4x4 people are. Yeah. I use it quite often I lift like the rear end of Bobcat until the tires come off the ground. And then I put the jacks underneath my rock sliders, and they're tall enough to hit that and have the tires off the ground, which is pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. All right. So summoner jacks, I'll put that down in the description. I want to do a quick, another small talk on just organization. I know I kind of alluded to organization a little bit before, but I think of having designated areas in your shop or in your space for where items go is a good thing. So maybe you have a toolbox, and that toolbox is in like on the wall. And then you kind of should focus, all your maybe hand tools are in there, and some other tools, and any other sort of tools that you could consider hand tools need to be in and around that area. Mm-hmm. So that, it's like, I have this tool, I know it goes over there. Yeah. And maybe you have, jacks or jack stands. Get all your jack stands together and put them in one spot. Try to put it maybe on top of a shelf or in a corner, or maybe get those hangy things if you have space on a wall, and just set them up so that when you're done with your project, you can put everything away. And the benefit of having sort of dedicated space for tools and project stuff is that you can easily clean up and reorganize and organize your shop so that when you're done for the day, you know exactly where things go. Things aren't left on the counter. Things aren't a mess on the floor. Things aren't just laying in cardboard boxes, randomly somewhere. You can put everything away. And I think the hardest part about this is having a place for everything. Mm-hmm. But once you do designate a place for all the items in your shop, you don't have to be exact. Like maybe, it's like maybe you have all your sockets in a drawer. Well, then when you're done for the day, you just need to put the sockets back on the drawer. Mm-hmm. If you have, a drawer in your toolbox that is, wrenches, maybe that, it's just all the wrenches go in that drawer. It doesn't matter. You're not exactly organized on that. But the thing is, you need to put them away. You need to put them in their place. You need to put them away so then you can have a clean shop, so then you can start the next day fresh.
Yeah, so you can find them when you need them.
That too. Time. Yeah.
Yeah. My big thing, and this is a good point I'm glad you touched on and hit it, was the jack stands. Jack stands just take up space, man. They're big, bulky items, and typically we've got multiples of them in different sizes. The summoners are really nice because they collapse down into a fairly small space item, but your typical pyramid jack stands, they just take up a lot of space. And you got me wall mounts for jack stands one year, and I also got some wall mounts for myself that same year for Christmas, which is pretty funny. But I still need to go in and use them and set those up because my jack stands are just sitting on my floor and they take up a ton of floor space. And it's one of those projects where I'm like, I just need to sit down and do this, but I haven't done it.
Yeah. And jacks, it's funny how jack stands work like that. They're an item that you use quite often. And so you need them out and easily accessible, but they do, when you're not using them, they're in the way. They just take up a lot of space. They're in the way. And so I've been storing mine on the shelf of my rolly cart. And so they they go underneath one of the rolly carts, and that's where they live. And then they're out of the way, but they're also on a rolly cart, which is kind of nice because then I can roll the cart out and I can pull like all the jack stands off right there. And I can move almost 6 of them out at once if I needed it, all 6. But instead of me walking to the shelf, grabbing 2, walking back to the vehicle, dropping 2, walking back to the shelf, grabbing 2, walking back, I can cut at least a little bit of that time off by having them on the shelf of a rolly cart. But yeah, figuring out spots for all the items, it really makes things easy. Like I have a tub for miscellaneous hardware. They just don't sit everywhere out on the shelf. They just sit in this tub. And eventually I would love, and I've actually I've bought a few things to try to organize my miscellaneous hardware into, standard and metric and different thread lengths and different lengths and everything, and build a little sort of toolbox or a tool storage in a way for all the miscellaneous hardware that I have. But sometimes you just want it in like a coffee can with a lid because you're going to end up taking it out on the trail anyway.
Yeah. Yep. This is good stuff. What about hardware storage? Bringing up the topic of hardware storage, because everybody has a box in their garage, in their shop, with just filled with random hardware.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to do it?
Or multiple,
multiple boxes filled with random hardware. Is that the best way to do it? Is it? I know that's kind of the way that everybody does it, but like, is there a better value in setting up little, I don't know,
little
a mini
shelves,
shelves system for storing your hardware, or are we just always doomed to have the random hardware box that you have to search through for that quarter 20 bolt?
I think it's a double-edged sword in a way. It's easier when you're done to be able to throw all the hardware in a tub or something, right? The coffee can. But then when you need to find the item a specific item you're looking for, you have to dig through the coffee can to find that item. Whereas if you're done for the day, then you have to sit there and you have to organize and put each bolt or nut away in a specific spot. You're taking time on the front side to organize everything. But then on the backside, when you need something, it's easy to reach and go and grab that one specific thing. So I think it's more of a time management item than an actual storage concern.
Space or anything
Though
like that.
I might argue that if you have a small space, you might consider just throwing everything into one bin because you don't have a lot of extra space to be able to have a bunch of really tiny small bins everywhere.
Yeah.
For better organizations. It might be just more beneficial to take like a coffee can and just fill it up. And then then you just pour the coffee can out on your rolly cart, sort through it really quick, find whatever you need and pour it back into the coffee bin and store it away. So that's definitely more condensed that way.
Yeah, I do it kind of both ways. I have that box that holds just random hardware. It's got a bunch of different shit in it. But then I also have, a common hardware that I use quite a bit. So M8 by 125 bolts and nuts, very, very common on Toyotas. So I actually have like a pegboard solution in my garage, and I have those like jars that will screw into lids, and the lid stays fixed into your pegboard. So I have 6 or 8 of those jars labeled M8 by 125 and quarter by 20. Seems like those two I just seem to use a lot of. And so I'll make sure that if I ever have an M8 by 125 bolt or nut or a quarter by 20 bolt or nut, that they end up going back into those. I also use those jars for smaller washers and split washers, because those always end up in the bottom of the random hardware box and I can never find them. So I just ended up putting them in those jars too. So
yeah,
miscellaneous random hardware crap box, and then quarter 20 M8 125s and smaller washers and split washers are kind of how I have mine segregated out as.
Yeah, I actually have three. I mainly have three small tubs, one for bolts, one for nuts, one for random washers and miscellaneous things. And so you do kind of have to do a little bit of searching. I mean, it's not all in one, so you're not like digging through everything, but you're like, oh, I need a bolt. I need a nut and a bolt and two washers. Well, now I got to go to dig through three spots, but at least it's not everything all in one, making it a disaster. Like I can look through the washers to try to find a washer that I need. Yeah. So that was the first step of me trying to organize for like a better storage solution that way was I'm going to separate all these things into these, like separate the nuts into the nuts, bolts for the bolts and washers, and then I can go forward to separate it more. But it's lived like that for years now. And it seems to be the way that it's working well for me for the most part.
Okay. I get OCD. I don't want to say OCD. Very much like if I get a random hardware, or I have hardware left over after a project, if a nut and a bolt can go together, I make sure that I store them together.
I do that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I was like, do you take your nuts and bolts apart and store them separately in these two boxes? Like, that's going to drive me crazy if I see you do that.
No, typically not. Like if I take them, if they came off the vehicle or if they came in a package that I didn't end up using or something and they go together, I put them together and I put them in the bolt bin.
Gotcha.
And then maybe sometimes I need that bolt, but I don't need the nut. And then I'll take it apart and then I put the nut into that bit, the specific nut bin. But if I have the option of them being paired, I leave them paired and put them in the bolt bin.
Good. I was like, don't drive me crazy like that.
And I'll even leave washers on if there's a washers on part of it too.
Absolutely. But, cool. Okay. So that's hardware. Anything else in terms of storage, shop efficiency? I think that, having things on wheels, having an efficient organization system that works for you, using all of your roof space, so up all the way up to the walls and to your ceiling, are really good tips.
In regards to that, I was going to sort of talk about the pegboard and like what I have, like wall control. I think you have some wall control as well.
That's my pegboard.
Yeah. I think they're really nice to have. I don't think they're I don't think they're necessary, first of all. They also take up wall space, and wall space is very important for storage.
Yes, it is.
So if you can get away with a pegboard or like a wall control or some sort of wall organization for some tools, go for it. But I think it's more important that you utilize the wall for storage purposes and put like a rack up or some sort of, shelving unit or not a rack, but just sort of I guess shelving unit would work. Something that you can start storing more. You can store more on that than you can on these pegboards. So I think that, like, even though I have some and I use them, there's a few places in my shop that I think I might take them down so that I could put some sort of shelving up instead.
Yeah, that's a good point. So over my electrical bench, I have 2 shelves. 3 shelves, 2 shelves. And then over my fabrication bench, I have the wall control, the pegboard.
And you have a shelf above that, right?
And I have a shelf above that. And that's for lubricants for cutting. That's for rags if I'm doing something oily over there. That's for storing the bigger battery tools that I'm not using, like the portaband, the circular saw, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that wall control, it is nice because I have it so that I hold extra cutting discs, flapper discs, the welding chipping hammer for the flux core stuff, welding brushes, wire brushes, wire brushes for the drill, the 2 grinders, speed squares, extra clamps. I have all that up there. So would I be able to put 2 shelves into there so that I have 3 shelves in total over my fabrication bench? Probably. Would it be harder to organize? I don't know.
Well,
would I be able to get more stuff up there? Yes. So, yeah, I'd have to look at that and see if the quick access to the quick things that I use all the time would be not as good versus having more stuff there.
True.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and in regards to like your workbench area, you don't want a shelf right in front of your head.
That's true.
Right. You don't want something protruding out of the wall. You want room to work. You need that space. You know, how tall is something? How deep is, your workspace? And you should probably keep an area roughly above your head, just barely above your head and down. Maybe all that area should be clear for you to do work on your workbench.
Yeah. True.
And then in that case, putting something on the wall, like a wall control or a pegboard or something, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like where you have your metalworking area, you have your toolboxes, you got metal top tables. That's where you do your metalworking. On the back of that, you have your wall controls. And then above your head, you have a big shelf that goes across the entire area. So yeah, I think that makes sense. But I was just saying, like, in my case, I have 2 wall controls on a wall, like by the basketball hoop, that has gear wrench tools on it that I almost never access.
Yeah.
It's a section of wall that's just, it's just a display wall at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I never use any of that stuff. It just looks good in videos, and it's a waste of wall space.
Yeah.
And I've been considering taking it down so that I can utilize the wall. I can put another shelf on there, organize it a little better, something like that. So consider that. Like, what would be a better use of your space, whether it's a pegboard, easy access, grab a few tools, or you leave the tools that you use most often out on there. Mm-hmm. Because those people that hang like 20 wrenches on a wall, I really don't think that's a waste of wall space, in my opinion. You don't use all those wrenches at one time. Throw them in a toolbox, have them organized in your toolbox, but don't, then you got wall space, and you got the space that takes up in your toolbox is way less than those things hanging on a pegboard. Mm-hmm. So it's just think about optimizing your space, I guess, is kind of what it is.
Yeah. I like it. There's some good stuff there. Any other tips that you can think of?
I was going to talk a little bit about just sort of electrical plugs and making sure that you kind of had them in a lot of different places, but I think you kind of brushed that topic with extension cords. Mm-hmm. So if you do only have a few plugs in your garage, or maybe one, just make sure you have a good extension cord. Don't get a cheap, small gauged one. Get a beefy, 50 footer. And, something that you can use all your tools on. Look at the rating of the cable for the rating of your tools, and buy one really good extension cord that you can use all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to check into. I like the idea and the concept, though, of looking at your electrical access in your shop space.
Yeah.
In your shop space, you have great electrical access. You've got wall plugs kind of all over in good spots. In my garage, it's decent. I wish I had a little bit more. I end up setting up more over my workbench space. I have a bunch of those long strips with like 6 plugs on it. I have 2 of those. But at my garage, at my condo, I had 1 outlet in the garage.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can't do shit in here. And it wasn't on the side where I needed to work on stuff. It was right by the door to the house. And so I was like, I need it over here. So I had to add in conduit and put another plug in over by the workbench. So making sure that you have access to electrical where you need it, and then you have that good extension cord for getting access anywhere else, is a big thing to kind of scope out and look at in your workspace. So.
Right. Yeah. And just for what it's worth, I guess, I don't know about everywhere in the country, but here in California, plugging a surge protector into a surge protector is illegal and fire hazard. And probably, I don't know if this is the case, but probably putting an extension cord into a surge protector is a no-go as well. So just be careful. Don't daisy chain everything so that you can, and run everything off of one outlet. Just, you don't want to burn down your garage or your house.
Yeah. Be aware of how your circuit panel works at your house or your shop or whatever it is, and what the rating is for that circuit that you're plugging into. So, and if you are looking at pulling more power than your panel allows for that circuit, then add another circuit into your panel. It's well worth it if you plan on doing it. So, yeah, I think that about does it, man.
Yeah, sounds good. If you have any questions or comments for us, feel free to call in to our snail mail episodes. That phone number is area code 916-345-4744. Leave us a voicemail. Also, if you have any other tips or tricks for what you do in your garage and what works well for you, then phone in and give us that information as well. I know that we have a lot of fabricators on this show, or that listen to this show, a lot of mechanics on this that listen in on the show. And I'm sure you guys have tons of tips and tricks. So we're all ears. I mean, we're not the answer for everything. And I'm sure you guys have some fantastic tips and tricks out there as well. You can also get a hold of us on Instagram. I'm over at SnailTrail4x4. Tyler's at 4x4 Toyota Tyler. You can also email us, Jimmy or Tyler, at SnailTrail4x4.com.
Yep. One person I am interested to hear from, because I know he has a very nice shop setup and it is extremely organized, would be one of our favorite Toyota listeners, Don.
Oh yeah.
So,
I was
love
thinking
to hear,
somebody else.
I'd love to hear what was the strategy in setting up his shop, if there has to have been one, because it is extremely organized. So I'm curious if Toyota Don had a strategy when he was setting all of that up, or if the strategy has changed throughout the years on how he lays out his shop. So,
yeah, that would be interesting. I'm wondering if he's changed things throughout the years. That's kind of cool. I know he's got kind of a loft area, so he's got some additional storage in that way. So I thought you were going to say Mike Klein.
Oh,
who has does a lot of work on Toyotas as well, and has a seems like a decent little shop. So I'm kind of curious how you have yours organized, Mike.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Give us a call. Let us know. I guess with that, any final words for everybody, Jimmy?
I think my final words are, don't be afraid to store stuff outside. If you don't have the room inside, figure out a way to make like a little lean-to, a carport, something, put the tires under some tarps, whatever. Store stuff outside if you don't have the room inside.
I like it. And with that, my friends, keep crawling. Hey, Jimmy. Do you have any jokes? I feel joke starved today.
Do you?
I do.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm missing a joke in my life.
Did I ever tell you the one about why do chickens have feathers? Or did the assistant tell you?
Why do they have feathers?
Yeah, why do chickens have feathers?
No idea.
Because.
Okay.
And then there was another one that was just like that I heard. Why do chickens only make one sound? But I don't remember what the punchline was.
Because?
It wasn't because. It was something else. Here, I can get it. Hold on.
What do you call a prankster chicken?
I don't know.
Practical yoker.
Not bad. I'm impressed. Let's see.
Why do chickens only make one sound?
Why?
Because they can't think outside the box.
Okay.
Did that come through enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll leave it at that.